The key here is thinking about it like, do you really know? And if your long term is so much upside of 100,000 or 2 or 5 or $1 million, once you get below 20,000, it's really like, okay, well, why are you squabbling over 5,000 bucks when you think it's going to go to $500,000?
Hey guys, welcome back to Library of Wealth. Today we have Gareth Soloway giving us his Bitcoin price prediction for the current cycle. Soloway believes that Bitcoin will fall below $20,000 before the midterm. He also discusses how the Federal Reserve had been artificially pumping the stock markets through excessive money printing, but that since the US government can no longer print money to support the economy, there will be a correction. Gareth Soloway explains it's important to follow the trend line and not to listen to fear in the market. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy what we do here on this channel. Let's get right into the video.
So my real long term, 3 to 5 years out, I think Bitcoin goes way higher. I think eventually you see this pivot where we get good regulation, or at least regulation, so investors know the rules, right? And that's a big thing to understand for a lot of newer investors in crypto, is that investors, and you'll see this in the stock market, we hate uncertainty. We want to know the rules that we're playing by, and that allows us to make decisions about risk and reward. And so without this regulation, it's really keeping a lot of big money on the sidelines, which makes Bitcoin very midterm uninvestable. Now, shorter term, you're going to get little pops if the dollar drops. If we have equities rally, you see the risk on trade come in. But we can very clearly see that the pattern here is this is a channel, and it is a bearish channel. You can't deny that. It is a bearish channel of consolidation. So this tells me we probably haven't seen the lows. Just the mere fact that I see the stock market having another leg lower, a substantial leg lower, that also indicates that as a risk asset right now, Bitcoin probably goes lower as well. And so again, 12 to 13,000 is where I'm looking for, probably within the next 6 to 12 months. And then I do think you finally bottom out. Maybe we pierce 10K. It's hard to know where these things bottom out. But I think once you get in the mid-teens, low teens, for me, it's just starting to slowly dollar cost average in, and knowing that my long-term views are so bullish on Bitcoin. Even though I have a 12, 13,000 price target, my worst case scenario is 3,500. I think, again, you'd stop out a lot of people at a break of 10,000. So when you're trading, psychology is a big part of it. So the question is, where do you get max bearishness and people, like the most people, to throw in the towel and give up on it? That's usually the bottom. So the question is, where is that going to be? It's making me think it's more 10,000 or sub 10,000. But basically, the key here is thinking about it like, do you really know? And if your long term is so much upside of 100,000 or 2 or 5 or $1 million, once you get below 20,000, it's really like, okay, well, why are you squabbling over 5,000 bucks when you think it's going to go to $500,000? And do you want to risk missing the trade? So what I like to do, and what I do is, once it gets in the teens, right, and you're getting, within maybe 10,000 of the low, I take a chunk of money, right, and I say, okay, how much am I really willing to invest of my net worth in Bitcoin? And let's just say 100K. And so I'll divide that 100K up into $20,000 increments. And then what I'll do is, at my first buy, it'll just be a very standard robotic 20,000 at, let's say, 18,000 or 16,000. And then what I'll do is, every $2,000 or $3,000, I'll just have automatic limit orders set where I'm going to buy a little bit more, another 20,000, another 20,000. And by doing that, even if it doesn't get to my lowest target where I wanted to buy everything, at least my dollar cost average, especially on something I think can go to 100 or 500,000, it's so low at that point. You just have to have some involvement in it, because you don't want to miss the next boat, the next bull market.
It's rather surprising to some that Soloway would put his price target so far under the $20,000 mark. He goes on to say that we've never been in a crypto period where the Fed has been hiking rates this frequently, and for Bitcoin, this is uncharted territory.
For me, it's really understanding that as much as the Fed is playing the hard game now and won't be able to print money, in a recession, if we get to a bad enough scenario like a depression, they're going to stimulate. They're going to go back to what they know best, because they're going to see the pain. They're going to feel the political pressure to print money again. And so inevitably, and this is, you can go back in history to the Roman Empire or to other things, this is how they kind of kept their economies on afloat during bad periods. But eventually it's the undoing of the empires. And so if you're looking at something like a Bitcoin, which you have eventually, you have to assume regulation comes eventually, bigger money starts getting involved more and more. Number one, you just get like 1% of pension funds to put that money in Bitcoin, and right there it's 100,000, if not more. But you start getting some of the bigger money involved with proper regulation and protections, and it's so easy to see it at even $500,000 at some point. Now, we're not talking near term here. You got to give it like 10, 15 years, but at some point it makes a lot of sense as kind of the digital gold. And with a run of only 21 million possible, if it can get taken on as a digital gold, $500,000 on Bitcoin is not outlandish. Yeah, I definitely still think we're in a bear market. I mean, the longer term trend on the S&P 500 is still fully intact. Like you mentioned, the July-August high, we still haven't even come up to close to testing that. In fact, let me show my screen here so we can kind of take a look at the chart itself. So this is the SPY, which is basically the S&P 500. And what you can see is the long-term downtrend from the high on the spiders is still fully intact, and we still have a decent distance to go. So for me, as long as we're below that line, the downtrend or the bear market is fully intact. Now, one of the interesting things you can see here is that if you take the 2020 low and connect it to this pivot low, look at how we broke that line, but now we're coming back and kind of testing that area with resistance. So it's a great day on the markets. I think today it's a sigh of relief for the markets. And what I mean by that is, we saw Meta's earnings, we saw Google, we saw Microsoft. I mean, it was just bloodbaths everywhere. Then yesterday after the bell, we got Amazon, and that was a catastrophe. And then Apple reported, and it was going down, and then it reversed, and now it's having a big up day, and everyone's like, oh, thank goodness, like we just avoided a major accident or collapse in the stock market. And so now you have a scenario where the big earnings of the trillion-dollar companies are over. The market now is going to focus back on the Federal Reserve, and I think there's this air in the market where the earnings have been so poor that the market is really hoping that this is where the Fed will say, okay, we're still hiking 50 or 75 at this November meeting, but afterwards we're going to take a pause. We see the economic data. We see that the earnings are getting really hammered here. So let's wait for a few months. And the market is craving that pause so badly.
Gareth Soloway believes that the recession is soon to follow in 2022 and to keep an eye on Bitcoin. This is important for all crypto investors and traders not to fall into impulse actions when a bear market crash hits. Soloway says that entering the market without an exit strategy and taking on debt without fully comprehending the possibility of being liquidated is a recipe for a massive hit to your portfolio. What do you think about Soloway's price prediction for Bitcoin? Comment down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This is Library of Wealth. We'll see you in the next video.